Okay. Well, hey, thank you guys very much for joining today. My name is Ken Close. I am the CEO, founder, and creator of QUORAeffect. I'm going to go into detail about what that means and what that is here shortly. But a little background about me. I am an engineer, electronics technical engineer to be exact. I've studied epigenetics and a lot around the quantum physics as well as neuroscience for the last decade. And I've put together well, let me put it this way. My intention is always to make complex content digestible, right? Understandable. That's been my motto, my desire, my heart's mission for forever, my entire life. And so, as I started to dive into some of these complex understandings around the body, around life itself, it was very apparent that some of the science out there was incomplete. I'm sorry, not necessarily the science, but the understanding of it. And so, folks, I want to talk today a lot about how we literally empower the body. And there's a way to do that. Um, I've been doing a lot of work with another company in terms of energy work and such. And today I'm going to talk a lot about how we can expand our own genetic expression. So, core effect is essentially a way of analyzing the body and probably um, the best marker for health, which is the autonomic nervous system. And so I can take a look at the autonomic nervous system by just simply sampling the heart rate and pulling what's called a HRV or heart rate variability, and then dissecting that signal into various windows of how the body's actually functioning. And it's extremely important to know because today I believe, and maybe some of you guys can concur, that we are under a lot of stress. And because of that, humanity has normalized such high levels of stress that we don't even really know, even in our resting state, if we're at peace, right? I mean, it's subjective, of course. We may feel like we're resting and at peace and relaxed. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at the body, if you asked the body, it would probably tell a different story. And now we have a way of actually taking a look at that and exploring that a little bit more. So we kind of referred to core effect if affectionately as QE. And I like that QE because it's also quantum entanglement. We really do work within this quantum entanglement model. And it's simply a duplicatable and holistic healing model that it uses non-invasive analysis system, like I mentioned before, looking at the autonomic nervous system, really looking at the autonomic nervous system, and then being able to apply very specific types of alignment tools. And we need to take things back a level and understand that there are systems that start at the very tiny, the atomic structures combined together, becoming molecules, molecules into cells, cells into tissues, and those tissues eventually into this entire organism called your body. And this body has a reorganizational rate of 800,000 cells per second. Now, think about that for a second. 800,000 cells per second. Some of you guys who know me and have we've talked about this before, but 800,000 cells per second are being recreated in your body right now. And there's a very distinct intelligence that orchestrates that entire blueprint. And the blueprint has a code, right? And that code is a genetic code. It's an infinite combination of let's look at it as like a Christmas tree with the lights blinking on and off, right? a variation of combinations in every given second. And the influence on this is essentially your consciousness, your awareness, your mind. And we know this theory that Einstein came up with long ago, that the observer has an influence on material form. So all things are energy, all things are potential. And it's not until one observes some moment into a solidified form, it then becomes particle. So the same thing with our body. Our body is a lot of potential. The genetic code is very adaptive, reading the environment to find out what quality and kind of body to create. And the mind solidifies 97% of that genetic code into material form. So think about that. Cell structures reorganizing themselves to the tune of 800,000 per second, and 97% of the genetic code writing that potential into form is influenced by energy. So we have quite a big opportunity here to really take our power back and empower these bodies. How do we do that? Well, there's ways to do that. One, of course, is the mind, the consciousness. If you guys believe that your thoughts have anything to do with your life, then you'll understand what I'm talking about. I believe that some of you may have experience or know someone with experience that have thought themselves sick, right? Thought themselves into a stress response, thought themselves into some kind of poor experience. The opposite is true as well. You can think yourself well. You can think yourself healthy. You can think yourself into abundance and possibility. So I want to talk about other ways that we can also influence that genetic code. And that's done through light, sound, vibration, as well as microcurrent stimulations. So we can actually speak to that genetic code. Remember that 97% of the adaptive gene that is solidifying potential into matter, material form, aka tissues, organs, systems, cells, your body. So this is what I want to talk about and how we do that. How do we influence that? So our mission here is with QUORAeffect is again empowering the body, because I believe that that healing, true healing, is way beyond symptom management, right? We have taken a lot of time and perfected the ability to manage symptoms. It doesn't mean that we're actually healing the body, though, because healing actually is the body. The body does this on its own. And there is this very innate intelligence, this wisdom that can actually assist us as long as we're allowing this process to happen. So there's been tons and tons of advancements within modern medicine and science, and yet there's still a lot of challenge. The majority of humans on this planet are in some sort of disarray, some sort of challenge. So we're looking at trying to create lasting and even permanent healing. Our motto is, we don't want you to just feel better, we want you to heal better. So how are we doing this? Our ways are through light, sound, microcurrent, vibration, and oxygen. If we could kind of hold hostage various signals going to the body, right? The entire body communicates through a light frequency. Every cell within your body, hundreds, thousands of trillions of cells in your body, 800,000 turning over every second, they communicate through a unified field of light. And so this communications portal can be influenced. We can speak to it, I guess you might say. And I love Nikola Tesla's quote. He said that the day that science begins to study the non-physical phenomenon, aka light, frequency, vibration, right, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. And that was 100 years ago, right? It was 100 years ago. And we're like, why is it that we're so, you know, less than abundant, I guess you might say. And so it's time that we really take a look at that reason. And this is because we've been giving essentially these wrong signals. And now what we can do is we can actually come back and give information to the body in a non-invasive way, non-chemical way, to enhance the body's own ability to do the things that it can do on its own. So QUORAeffect is essentially, it is a duplicatable, it's a holistic system that uses non-invasive analytics as well as non-invasive applications for healing. It's essentially a very specific plug and play process. We have a autonomic nervous system, kind of a snapshot. It's a 5-minute test that reveals 11 panels of content. Now, this is not my science. It's not my technology. This is Russian technology, created in 2018. We've just taken it in and using it as essentially liken it to, and this is not the great analogy, but like the scale that you would weigh yourself. Perhaps there's one in your bathroom, right? When you get on the scale and you weigh yourself, it gives you a number. Unfortunately, that number doesn't tell you how much of that is bone or muscle or fat or other tissues. It just says, here's your number generically. Well, and that's not bad. That's not terrible. It means that, okay, now I have a snapshot of what I weigh right now, and I can go out in my life and I can do various things and I can see how that number changes. Okay. So that's a great snapshot. What QUORAeffect does and what our analytic systems do is it takes a sampling of your heart rate, 300 samples as a matter of fact, and measures HRV, in other words, the spikes of the sinus rhythm, the high points, and it times them. That's heart rate variability. And from that signal, it takes a very specific portion of that, the alpha wave portion off of that signal. And then it dissects that, I should say, it runs that through various algorithms. Like if you were to take a prism, you're familiar with a prism, if you take sunlight through a prism, on the other side of that prism comes out a rainbow, right? And that's because the prism filters the light into different frequencies and out comes the colors based on those frequencies of light. Well, what this system does is that takes this alpha wave and then filters it through algorithms that we can take a look at brainwave frequency. We can take a look at cardiovascular adaptation. In other words, how well your cardiovascular system expands and contracts to regulate blood pressure. We can take a look at neurohormonal regulation within your body, stress index. We can even take a look at your biological age. Now, this is a super cool little feature. No different than if you were to step on the scale in your bathroom. It gives you a number, right? But what if you could see if that scale could also tell you that what you're doing is reversing age, right? Or if it is compounding age. We would rather the former than the latter. Yes, we want to try to turn back the hands of time. Well, our nervous system is probably one of the most telltale signs within your body as to what exactly is going on. So the concept here is to partner with all kinds of different healing practices. I don't know, it's a yoga studio, a personal training business, a yoga studio, a martial arts studio, anything that's around trying to improve the body or improve the person. So we can take a look at, let's say that you are a yoga studio, and now remember, I'm building a model here so you can see, perhaps you could use this with your current business if you have one, or as a standalone new modality for a business of your own, or thirdly, to have your own way of monitoring yourself and then implementing very specific science-based technologies to improve your own health. Okay, so I'm kind of building a model here so you kind of see what I'm talking about. With this analysis engine, we could, let's say, again, you had a yoga studio and you want to take a better look at your client's progress. You may see some of their functionality changing and improving, but something is just not quite all the way there. And so you could take a 5-minute test to see how their autonomic nervous system is functioning, and then maybe coach them in terms of other modalities or added things that they could do or subtracting things from their lives in order to improve the way that they function. So QUORAeffect does not require a PhD. Now, when I say QUORAeffect, this is an entire model, right? Any portion of this can be used for your healing, and it'll clear up as we go through this. It's not required to have a PhD. You don't have to have a medical license. You don't need to have any specific certifications to operate this system. All the training is available. It's super easy and duplicatable. That's the whole point, that we can create a system that anybody can do. Taking complex things, complex ways of healing, and simplifying them down into usable, tangible, digestible pieces. Does that make sense? Okay, here's our therapies. And you guys have probably heard about these, right? So light therapies, we have red light therapy, which also uses near infrared. So the red light is a 660 nanometer panel. It also transmits an 850 nanometer near infrared signal. There's also a new technology. This is really new, folks. And I'm talking about, this panel that you see, the green one. This is the first of its kind. I was blessed to get the first panel here in the US. And this green light therapy, we call it the emerald laser, or the emerald therapy, green light. It's a 525 nanometer. Its main focus, what that frequency of light does, is it cryogenically expels fat cell content. In other words, it's similar to what ketosis does through a nutritional protocol of managing carbs and fats and proteins. But this does it essentially just with light. It encourages and actually expands the fat cell, releasing its content, shrinking the cells. Now, by the way, we don't get a lot more fat cells. We just get them more engorged, right? When the body becomes bigger and bigger, this is a toxic burden. And so the body stores toxic burden in the fat. That's its storage vault. And the problem with that is that the body doesn't really have opportunity to release it. And the reason is because that particular energy source, which fat is, it's a great energy source, but it's never utilized because the body never gets down to that as an energy source. It's always using carbs, sugars, right? Glucose. It's always using that as an energy source because we continuously feed an abundance of that resource for the body. And it's going to take the path of least resistance for energy, which is the glycogen stores, that kind of thing. It's carbs. So if we want to get rid of things in that fat system, we need to do some sort of a fast or a detox or some of those programs. And maybe you all are familiar with those. There's many. This light actually encourages that without those other protocols. The side effect also, by the way, of the green light therapy is it tightens the skin. Oh my gosh, who would not like a little bit of that? So what I'm talking about is, wrinkle control, elasticity and tension within the skin, making it a little more, it's healthier, and ways of it also encourages its mending. So that's the green light therapy. We also use what's called a brain entrainment therapy. You see here in the photograph, the client has a set of goggles and a headset. This headset uses light frequencies through the eyes. Now, eyes are closed, which is interesting because how many of you guys know that when you close your eyes, you can still see light? Yes? I mean, sometimes that's a hard thing it's hard to go to sleep because what? Maybe there's light glaring in, and we're having some kind of a, the brain's turned on and won't shut down. Well, this is just typical because your eyes are 74% of your entire awareness. Everything that you take in, you place your attention. 74% of your attention is on the visual cortex. That information coming in through that part of your senses. So this gives with the goggles, gives various tempos and light variations to create what we call a brain entrainment through that optic nerve, as well as there is light going into the ears. Now, why would we put light in the ears, right? Aren't the ears for sound? Yes, but also the ear itself is a direct tap to your vagus nerve. The ear has portals to all of the vagus nerve systems. And so there's lots of ancient therapies that use ear. You guys are familiar with acupuncture, right? You can actually speak to different areas of the body through the ear, as well as the ear is extremely thin, right? You can shine light through it. Well, there's a reason for that because light penetrates through the ear and speaks to the vagus nerve. Very, very amazing technology to create what we would call a frequency following response. So when we use light in variations, we can send those light frequencies into the body to create a frequency following response. This is how the brain follows this entrainment system. So light therapy. Our other one is sound therapy. Sound therapy is tremendous in its effectiveness, and the goggles that I mentioned in the last slide also transmit sound. So I've got over 2,000 programs with this technology that we can speak to the mind, we can speak to the person, we can create various scenarios such as like a meditation, but maybe folks that can't meditate because their mind is so busy. Well, this system essentially doesn't care because we can send those various sound frequencies, binaural beats, isotonic tones, this kind of stuff into the brain and through the audio nerve, and we can change the brain frequency. And this is even above and beyond one's own monkey mind. I know some of you guys may not experience it, but you may know others out there that experience this constant barrage of thoughts that keep them limited into what they can actually achieve because they're distracted, right? This again is this monkey mind. So the goggles give that sound therapy in dual voice because we can speak left ear, right ear, keeping the brain moving in its awareness. And then we can also play music and content through the goggles. It's all done wirelessly. Like I mentioned, over 2,000 programs that can address everything from stress, anxiety. There's programs for PTSD. There's programs for things such as success and like for business or for relationship. Things around, if you're familiar with some of the Indian chanting. I mean, there's over 2,000 programs, and we can address all of those and implement a program. And these are only about 20, 22 minutes long. They're very, very short, very quick. On the other side of the screen, the accelerator is another form of sound therapy using specific sound waves, not so much in a music form or in a voice form, but in a tone. And so there are about 700 different conditions that we can speak to the body through sound, through these tones. So again, another therapy that also translates that sound into vibration, and we'll go into that here next. The other one is another therapy is microcurrent therapy. Microcurrent increases ATP production by up to 500%, amino acid transport, protein synthesis. This is all non-invasive. And because the body's electrical, and because we're talking about the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, we can actually run small microcurrents. You can't really feel them, but this is electron flow through the body. And the electrons are oscillated at very specific frequencies that talk to different systems, tissues, organs, and cells. So we can target very specific parts of your body. We can target very specific content in your body, emotional, trauma, things around focus and cellular activity. Remember I said earlier, 97% of that genetic code is adaptive, reading the energy of its environment, right? And this is the way that we tap right into that energy, along with those other therapies. But this is another one that we use to really talk to the body at a genetic level. So the vibration therapy is the last one I want to talk about in terms of this energy therapy. There are 70 preset programs, but we can speak to, and this is just in one realm, we can speak to up to 700 conditions in the body. This particular vibration technology, again, all of this is portable. So there are other non-portable versions of this that expand upon this, but this is just the beginning. If someone wants something in their home, if someone wants a business that they could take with them on the fly, if someone wants something that they can enhance an already functioning healing modality, this is the way to do it. So this is all driven from a laptop or from your mobile phone. Every bit of what I'm talking about simply needs to plug into an outlet, and then you have the laptop to control it, or a mobile phone with an app that controls all of this. We can, with the vibration technology, this particular system, you can see in the picture there, there's a little mouse-looking pod. There are two of these mouse-looking pods that vibrate at anywhere from 3 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Very responsive material, and we pump an audio wave through them at a very high power, and they vibrate. They vibrate. In fact, they're so responsive, unlike a speaker that has a diaphragm that moves back and forth to move air, these things vibrate mass, material, right? Metal form. And we can actually play music through them. They're so responsive. So it's a super cool technology. You place them on the body, and because they send a vibrational signal into the body is like you guys ever had a massage? That touch, that moving, that feel. That's kind of what we're doing. We're taking a vibrational signal, a frequency of sound, and sending it mechanically into the body. And we can address it, a joint, we can address tissue, we can address the intestinal systems, we can address the pelvic floor, we can address anywhere in the body to actually do localized treatments right to the body through vibrational systems. And lastly, what we do is we also have a concentrated oxygen module that goes with this. And I highly encourage this because it increases oxygen 90 to 95% going into your body. Now, what we breathe from our air is way less than that. But when we increase the oxygen in our body, now all of a sudden, cognitive clarity goes through the roof. It's amazing how just a little extra oxygen can help boost the brain's effectiveness. So improving that cognitive ability. It speeds healing, no matter what kind of healing you're working with, whether it's a wound, an abrasion, or even some kind of a disease or disorder. When we can put pure oxygen in the body just simply increases its effectiveness in terms of healing. And it's just simply done through a cannula, which is, you've seen, you put over the ears, and you breathe them in through your nose, non-invasive, and you just breathe that pure oxygen through a concentrator right into your body. So basically, we're looking at light, sound, vibration, frequency in order to speak to the entire cell structures of your body. This is the key. we're not talking about a drug. We're not talking about a chemical. The body is its own amazing pharmaceutical system. It's its own system. But I guess I would say that we overstimulate it chemically, right? And there are a lot of systems out there that are, I guess, if you take a look at some of the advertisements, have a lot of side effects, right? You can see them. In fact, I get a lot of folks who say, well, where's your research? And by the way, all of these systems are FDA cleared. All of these systems have tons of facts, science, data, studies, content that you can look at. But here's the interesting part. Every single time you see there's an advertisement on television for a pharmaceutical, a drug, and it shows the benefits. And a doctor says, hey, I want you to take this drug. Now, the doctor doesn't do the research. The pharmaceutical company does the research. And then they list all these side effects. Now, of course, the doctor has to tell you that there's some side effects. And so does the advertisement, the commercial. You ever seen that? At the end, there's a really fast voice that telling you, and side effects are blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of them. Does anybody on their own do research on those drugs? Not very often. Not very often. But when I talk about a light therapy or a vibration therapy or a sound therapy, I get people ask me all the time, well, where's your research? Really? Some folks are willing to take a drug with a ton of side effects without their own research, but yet will ask for research on a holistic, natural healing system. And I encourage everyone to do your research. You should. But why is it that there's so much skepticism in something that you can't see, right? Versus something that is a pill that you take? Again, you heard my quote from Nikola Tesla 100 years ago. This is the non-physical phenomenon. And I think it's really important that we open that door and let that be our way. So let me talk a little bit about the analytical system that I mentioned earlier. So it's called NeuralCheck, and it is an HRV analysis. And on the screen here, you're going to see some panels. These are some of the bits of content that this system reveals. So I mentioned earlier, cardiovascular adaptation. So this gives us a snapshot, like doing a blood test, right? When you go and do a blood test, a CBC, you get this report. And on the report, it says, here's the parameters that's good, and here's yours, right? And sometimes you're in it, sometimes you're not in it. You want to be in this parameter based on this measuring stick. Great. The downfall to that blood test is it tells you if you're within boundaries of just standard health. In other words, you're just not sick. So why doesn't it show you a boundary of optimal health where you're just crushing it? That doesn't exist. This does. This gives you the ability to see where you are. It does give you a boundary that says that this is typical, this is good. But also you can use this to improve, right? You can take a look at where you're currently at, and then go out into your life and do some things to improve your life. I don't care if it's just going out and grounding on the earth more often, walking in nature, drinking more water, maybe a little bit of movement, right? These things are natural things that cost you nothing, but we're not really measuring to see what our current state is and how we're improving. So this way we can actually do that. Up at the top corner, there's a kind of a picture of a brain. This is the psycho-emotional state. So this actually is an indication of how the different compartments of your brain are interacting, whether they are coherent, working together, or incoherent, segregating and working apart. And this is where most of our problems happen. When we're in a high stress response, our brain and the different compartments of our brain, which are supposed to be working in unison, are working independently because all they're doing is trying to keep their part of their job in order. That's because it's a stress response. We could take a look at all kinds of things from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, energy consumption rates and energy available in the body. All of this is here. And as I mentioned before, it also measures your biological age versus your chronological age. So you can kind of see, oh my gosh, I'm 60 some years old, but I'm functioning as a 40-year-old. That's what we want, isn't it? Because this is optimal health, not necessarily shown up on the blood test, but it is shown up here. Okay. So this again meant, as I mentioned, it's a 5-minute test. You simply, the hardest part is to just relax. And you don't even have to really relax because we want to take a look at your current state. We see your current state, and it doesn't matter if it's in dysregulation or in regulation. It doesn't matter because what we want to do is just improve it. And we can improve it through these other natural mobilities or by looking at what you do in your life. Let's just say that we did this test. Okay, NeuroCheck does a test. And this is a software and hardware package. And we did this test. And by the way, there's no membership to this test. If you decide you want to take the model of QUORAeffect and build a business out of it, you purchase the systems that I have available, and you can simply build your own healing center, your own mobile healing center, or your own add-on to whatever business you're doing. This technology alone is priceless, in my opinion, for being able to see how effective our treatment, our practice is. Every other practice out there, let's say, I don't know, let's just say that you break a bone and you go into a practitioner and they're going to say, well, we need to take a look. They're going to do what? An x-ray. Yeah. Okay. They're looking inside to find out what's going on and how to guide them into fixing it. Same thing with, say, some other tissue issues, an MRI, right? We need to look inside. Again, like I mentioned, a blood test. We need to look inside and find out what is going on. Well, this gives us a very elaborate 11-panel snapshot of a look inside. And then, of course, you can print a report that gives you that bandwidth for each one of these sections, the bandwidth of normal, and then where you fall. And then just change things in your life to find out how much you can improve those numbers. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, this is all of what I'm talking about fits in this case. And I roll this stuff around with me. I've taken it to, I was in India not that long ago, presenting it to a women's hospital. They want to implement this within their nutrition, fitness, and then holistic healing modalities, that wing that they're building. I've taken it from coast to coast, from Washington, California to New York, and fits on an airplane, goes anywhere I want. The only place I ever had any questions with it was in India when they saw the light panel. They're going, what is this? It's like interesting. They've not seen that kind of stuff before. So everything that I'm talking about is a healing system that we can measure and then implement. Measure and then implement. And course correct. My motto is to do, evaluate, course correct. Like I mentioned before, we don't want you to just feel better. We want you to heal better. And that's QUORAeffect.